Hello, and welcome to another episode of Brand Chops, where we're chopping up brands to see what they're made of. My name is Zach Lemire.
And I'm Chris Duhame. Today we're going to talk about how to leverage LinkedIn for your personal brand. And today we brought in Angela Duns. Angela calls herself the accidental entrepreneur. She moved to San Francisco with the hopes of becoming a CMO with her shiny new MBA in her hand, but instead she started her own business. Angela is the LinkedIn badass, sharing her expertise of business development, professional branding, visibility, and optimization on LinkedIn. Thanks so much for joining us today.
So glad to be here, Chris, Zach. Good morning.
Yeah, we're really excited to talk about this topic because I think it's something that not enough people talk about. And I think a lot of people make a lot of mistakes on LinkedIn, myself included. So I'm excited to learn a lot from you today.
And there's a lot of people that really shouldn't be spreading the information that they do know about LinkedIn because it changes every day.
That's a good point. So we're going to jump right in. What do you think are the most important elements of a LinkedIn profile that small business owners should optimize to enhance their personal brands?
And that's an excellent question to start on. There are a couple places that give you the biggest bang for your buck, and that would be the above the fold view. That is where you get 5 seconds to make an impression, or somebody is on to the next profile, one of your competitors. You really don't have much time. Our attention span has disappeared since the pandemic. We want information to be spoon fed to us immediately with lots of clarity. So it's really important to use that above the fold view to your best advantage. Using empty platitudes that don't mean anything and don't talk about the problem that you solve are not going to draw people in. Now, in that 5 seconds, the first thing that they look at for the longest time is your profile photo. And if your profile photo is not up to date, and I'm not going to be able to recognize you if I meet you for the first time in a Zoom meeting or in a coffee shop, you've already broken trust. And you'd be surprised at how really important that is. So that profile photo should be up to date. And here's the kicker. Most people will have their photo taken without their glasses, but the first time you meet them, they're wearing glasses. And LinkedIn, through all of their heat map studies, has found out that people who wear glasses are 62% more trustable. So there's that trust factor. So I tell people to rock their glasses. Now, the next thing they look at is your banner. And the banner, there's so many people that are not using that banner space at all. And it is an opportunity to tell people what problem you solve, who you serve, and to create an emotional connection. LinkedIn has discovered through those heat map studies that if people are included in that banner space, and especially people that look like the people you serve, age, ethnicity, all of that, you are much more likely to create an emotional connection. Super important. And then your headline should say, who do you serve? What problem do you solve? What results do you bring? And maybe if you can incorporate it, a little bit of differentiation. Usually 2 of those 4 things is all you can fit in that 240 characters.
I have a couple of follow-up questions real quick. So can you tell the audience a little bit more about what above the fold means?
Above the fold is an old newspaper term. So if you remember when newspaper boys used to be handing out the newspaper, it was usually the photo or the headline that caught people's eye. And that's when they gave them their quarter or whatever it was for a newspaper back then. It's kind of the same on LinkedIn. That above the fold view is where people decide yes or no. And if they leave your profile within that first 5 seconds, they may never come back.
No, that's good. No, and I know that like in the digital world, above the fold is like before you have to scroll. So I just wanted to clarify that. So thank you. Really good points about consistent photos across everything so that people can easily recognize you.
Well, and there's nothing worse than, you look at somebody's website and you look at their LinkedIn profile and you're like, is that the same person? If you make people work too hard, they're just done.
Any suggestions for profile pictures, like how to set them up, whether you should be doing, I've seen different things, black and white versus color, Any suggestions on any of that?
I have a lot of suggestions on that, but I'll try to keep it super brief. It really should be recognizable, head and shoulders only, and professional according to your industry. Attorneys are still wearing suit and ties a lot, but if you're a marketer or in the creative space, you want to look professional. You don't want to be wearing a hoodie or something like that, but appropriate for your industry. Great big, friendly, approachable smile or half smile, whatever is natural and authentic for you. Neutral background. And you really want to pick a background that is contrasting for your hair color. Most of us have lighter hair. So you want to pick a darker background. That way people are looking at your face and not the background.
Great. Anything about black and white versus color? Any suggestions for that?
There are some people that really rock the black and white, but most people really prefer color. There's a little more detail with color. Now, I've seen a lot of people that are using avatars as their photo, and I don't recommend that. I may be old school, but I really want to create a personal connection to you as a human being, not as a cartoon character.
No, that's a good point. And I would say that one of the things that really puts me off the most is as a, I go through a lot of networking meetings and a lot of networking calls. When someone has a 20-year-old photo as their LinkedIn, or they have it on the page that they hand out to us so that we can see who we're about to meet. And then we go and we try to find them in the real room, and you can't find them because they're 20 years older, or they've lost all their hair, or something is different that's drastic. And then you don't understand who it is. So I would also say that
I
you got to
won't
make
do
sure that
business with those people. It's deception.
it is a little bit deceptive for sure.
It's breaking trust. Be who you are and rock it. If you have gray hair and you're wearing glasses now, rock that look. Be authentic. Admit who you are and be loud and proud about it.
How about things like details on your profile? So like past experiences, projects, past work, like any thoughts on any of that stuff?
I have a completely different idea of how the About section should be designed, and I can give you the cliff notes on past work experience too. Optimization on LinkedIn has become super important. I do a weekly podcast with a friend of mine who is an SEO specialist for websites, works with a lot of attorneys in e-commerce, and he says that Google search it's off by about 60 to 70%. It is just not as accurate as it used to be. You get better results from ChatGPT these days than you do from a Google search because of AI and because of the de-indexing of so many different website pages that Google has done recently. 60% of website pages are no longer indexed. So that really doesn't help with search at all. There's lots of things that you can't find. But LinkedIn in April and May beefed up their search parameters. So LinkedIn is really the best search game in town, and it helps feed all the other search engines. So a well-optimized profile is super important. So with your past work experience, you want to talk about accomplishments, your top 3 functions at that job, and you really want to speak of it in terms of transferable skills and soft skills, things that are going to feed what you do currently and not mislead people. For example, I got a phone call one time from a guy, and he said, "Angela, I hate LinkedIn." I said, "Why is that?" And he said, "Well, all the hits that I'm getting are for technical writing from recruiters." And that's what he had done for the past 15 years in Silicon Valley, he was writing technical manuals. And so we had to gut his entire profile for his past work experience and really change it so that he looked like an organization development professional rather than a technical writer. So it really does make a difference. LinkedIn is designed as a searchable database. It is a searchable Rolodex to connect the right people for the right opportunities. Optimization is way more important than people make.
So as far as optimization, do you mean search engine optimization style, where like keyword density or specific things like that?
There are 2 sections of your profile that are weighted very heavily for search, and that is your headline and your skills section. 95% of the people that I work with have skills in their skills section that they have no intention of ever using again. because they haven't updated it in 10 years or 15 years or whatever it is. They're being found for those terms. And that's not exactly great for business. Another thing that a lot of people avoid is density. And density is an important factor of optimization on LinkedIn. So adding that featured section and adding guest podcasts, there's nothing stickier than a guest podcast on LinkedIn, but adding a density factor. The algorithms, words are light fare. They don't care so much. But you start putting media and links in there, and they get excited about that, and they're going to serve up your profile first.
Outside of the profile itself, do you have any recommendations on how to leverage the connections you have through, whether it's messaging or things like that?
I was just talking to somebody who is having me come in for a training, and most people really forget who they have in their own network. And so I always recommend, business has shifted dramatically, and who we serve and the problem that we solve has shifted dramatically. And I think everybody, at least once a year, should do an advanced search of your current network and find out who are those ideal referral partners and your ideal audience. How many of them do you have in your network right now that you haven't paid attention to in heaven knows how long? Those can be bookmarked. And then you can get a hold of people and say, hey, it's been a long time since we connected. How are things going for you? Anything that I can do to help you out? Or I read this article the other day and I thought of you. Whatever it is, but really tickling your current network and using it in a strategic way. I recommend that people put together a top 25 list for two things. One, those people that refer to you, and two, those people that are great prospects for you right now. And the thing you want to keep in mind is LinkedIn is a relationship building tool. It is not a direct conversion tool. Its best use is to keep your network warm. Only 1% of your current network needs you. Your job is to stay top of mind until they need you.
That's good advice.
It's actually interesting. So we've been trying to find different ways to utilize LinkedIn as well from a marketing perspective and helping clients just get more value out of it as opposed to some of the more traditional digital stuff like just ads and things along those lines. So one thing that we've been recommending for clients is to look at their existing client list and then look at the friends or the connections that they have and utilizing that as a starting point to potentially say, hey, I noticed that you're connected with this person. I feel like we're doing a good job for you. Would you mind making that connection for us? I feel like that's been pretty helpful.
Is a great idea. And another thing that you can do to support that with your content strategy is to be sharing testimonials. And if you have permission, if they don't mind, including the photo and their title and name when you're sharing testimonials. Because if that person that just got introduced to you sees your connection in between the two of you, their testimonial, they're much more likely to create an emotional connection. Oh, wow, they really did work with that person. And they had a good result.
Okay, so I've got a bunch of questions for you. On LinkedIn, they have a bunch of different things that you can do. Like we talked about the featured section a little bit, which until yesterday I had just I'm like an amateur landscape photographer, and I posted some of that work up there, which is unrelated to anything else that's on my LinkedIn. And I just realized that I think I saw somebody else post an article or something in there instead. So I switched it up to some of the articles that I've written in LinkedIn. But strategically, what do you think are the best things to put in the featured section?
Oh my gosh, this is a great question. Thank you, Zach. You should be putting things in your featured session that are great resources for your ideal clients and your referral partners. So anything that is going to answer questions and provide value for them is perfect. Podcasts are a perfect thing. It's a way for them to hear your voice and in most cases actually see, and it's a very intimate space. If they're looking at you on their iPhone or on their computer, your face is like a foot and a half away from them, or maybe even closer. So they're very quickly going to be able to decide, yes, I could work with this person, or no, they're not for me. And so it's a great sorting hat. So podcasts are fantastic. but so are case studies, client success stories, like you said, newsletters and articles that are providing a great deal of value, answering a question or giving tips. Checklists are super popular. People cannot lay off things like mortgage calculators and checklists and things like that. They want to know where they stand. So anything that's a great resource, or if it creates credibility for you. If you've done a speaking engagement someplace and you have a photo of that, or a testimonial from a speaking engagement, or you're on stage at a conference, or you did a breakout session, those are really good things to create credibility for yourself.
Okay, that's great. Now there's another piece of LinkedIn that I'm interested in. So there was a section where you can add a custom button or add something like that. And the only thing I've ever done is book a virtual coffee with me to pick my brain, which no one has ever done. It's thinking like I'm giving out this tremendous free resource for people and no one has ever clicked it once. So what do you think is
That's
the best
so
use for that button?
interesting. 2 years ago, I started using that custom button and it just says, schedule a coffee chat. And I used a little emoji that was a calendar and a coffee cup. And 2 to 5 times per week for a year and a half, I got appointments from that. So, it wasn't a sales call. It wasn't a discovery call, none of that sort of thing. No pressure, just a coffee chat. Now I'm currently doing a 3-month experiment. I changed it to sign up for my newsletter. And I think I might leave it as sign up for my newsletter. Signing up for my newsletter is a smaller leap than to actually do a one-to-one with me. It's a way for them to check out my philosophy of LinkedIn and the tips and tricks and things that I share in my newsletter. And my newsletter is quirky, it's irreverent, it's got a voice of its own for sure, but it's packed full of marketing information that goes way beyond LinkedIn. And it's a great place for people to check me out and get to know me further and to stay in touch with me until they actually need me or someone they know needs me. So you really have to decide what is going to drive business objectives. What is tiny leap that it's really easy for somebody to make that provides value to them?
That's
Could
awesome. Okay, I have one more question. The other thing that I've been trying to do to leverage LinkedIn in a better way and leverage my authority as a personal brand is contribute to articles that keep popping up, especially stuff about branding, about marketing, about very specific things. Now, my assumption is that if you're not going to do that consistently, it's not going to work. But do you have any tips and tricks about contributing to articles? Because I'm sure that a lot of people listening are getting these things popping up in their LinkedIn feed as well, talking about please contribute to this article.
It's a lot of work. It is a whole strategy in itself. I have been very consistent about contributing to articles and I have never gotten a top voice badge on my profile. Now, I don't know I know lots of other people who do have the top voices badge at the top of their profile in that above the fold view. And that does help create credibility. All of those articles are AI generated. So they're kind of general topics that they want real human beings to chime in on and add their expertise. Now, if you are consistently adding to one single topic, you are more likely to get that top voices. If you're contributing all over the place, it's less likely that you're going to be recognized as a top voice. So pick one, like branding or digital marketing, something that is a really good association for your clients to make to the work that you do for them, and then stick with that consistently and see if you can get that badge. And then my recommendation is stay consistent for a good 60 days so that badge stays on your.
Okay, that's great advice. Thank you.
And my last question I have is just the mistakes that you see most common for your audience that you have to fix. Like one of the first couple of things that you fix for clients.
Well, no one wants to work on their own profile. It's the least sexy thing to do. So I would say that above the fold view, most people have not updated their profile in way too long. and they have all the wrong keywords. It doesn't clearly state the problem that you solve. Another mistake that people make is that they make LinkedIn about themselves, and it is not. It is about what you do for others. So if you think of your about section more like a sales page, are you looking for? Are you experiencing? Are you struggling with? Really draw in your ideal client from the get-go with their pain points and tell them how you make those pain points go away. In the second or third paragraph, you can establish your credibility. I have 15 years experience in marketing and sales, whatever it is. But people really don't care about you until they know what you can do for them. And then add a bulleted list. Make it super easy for them to scan the problems that you solve, or the industries that you serve, or the results that they might enjoy because they work with you. So blocks of text do not work anywhere. That is the biggest mistake I see in content, is it's a solid block of text and everybody runs from that. They can't scroll fast enough. So really breaking things up and making it easy to read. Think of your own habits. What are the things that you're drawn to? And then you need to recreate that for others. It's professional courtesy. If you have a great service to offer, you need to present it in a way that is easily digestible by your ideal audience.
I think that's really interesting because a lot of the points you're making are what we say when we're talking about websites. So it's not any different where we put the client's needs and pain points at the top of the list and then show how we have empathy and understanding and authority to be able to solve those problems. So it definitely is all in line. And I've never really looked at LinkedIn like that, but I think that's a good thing to look at. I might need to talk to you more after this.
Well, I think the biggest mistake that people make is, they think of LinkedIn as one-to-many platform. And it really should be thought of as a one-to-one conversation to that person that's looking at your profile right now, that person that's reading your post right now. It's a one-to-one conversation at a coffee shop with a human being.
I think another mistake that they probably make is that they see it solely as a sales tool and not as a communication and networking tool. Exactly, right. And so I think a lot of people, even if you get the premier thing, the LinkedIn Sales Navigator and all these other sales things, who in this audience probably hasn't had some generic robot-y message come through LinkedIn? Hi, LinkedIn member. I have blah, 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 blah. Link here, buy this, ask for more. And it's like, you can smell it a mile away. And
Yes.
especially, and sometimes they can automate it with my first name, but I'm not fooled by that because the rest of it is just still junk. And then, they created the whole TLDR, too long didn't read, because people don't want to read a lot of text anymore. So I think you're absolutely got your finger on the button here with Make It Media. Something that you would share with somebody else is where you should probably start. I was just talking to Chris before in the green room, a quote unquote green room, about this car dealership that's getting so much viral attention right now because they created their own office style video series where it's the same way that Office did it, and they're creating commercials and they're doing all this funny stuff and they have all this behind the scenes stuff and the shaky camera angles. And I was like, oh man, and no wonder they probably sold a bunch more cars. If they didn't sell a bunch more cars, then a bunch more people know about where to buy cars from them now. So, and I shared it with somebody else. And so I think that's how I'm going to start viewing this through that lens. That's great advice. Thank you.
There's too much generic stuff on LinkedIn. People are putting stuff out there just to put stuff out there. If you have anything that is novel or unique or authentic, people are going to pay attention.
Yeah, you got to be careful that between the line of novel, authentic and unique, and offensive. And
Yes.
because what you're putting out there is permanent, you can't take it down. So don't try to get attention for the sake of getting attention. Try to add value every time.
Yes.
I think some people do that too. There's a lot of people probably getting a lot of TikTok views and everything. They're probably getting paid pretty well off of TikToks but it's not going to last. It's not sustainable.
No. LinkedIn is the long game. It's the long game. It's a relationship building tool. It's so funny. I was just having this conversation the other day with my person who helps me with my CRM. LinkedIn is a networking management tool.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Angela, this has been great to have you. Is there anything else that you'd like to share that you think is just a critical piece of advice that everyone must know before we go?
Whatever you're doing on LinkedIn, be consistent about it and be authentic.
Love that. Love that. And so if anybody who's listening would like to get in touch with you and get some services to help them with their LinkedIn branding, where would they go?
To my LinkedIn profile. And it's super easy to find my LinkedIn profile. And while you're there, sign up for my newsletter.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, Angela, thank you so much for guesting on Brand Chops. We're so happy to have you. I'm sure that, I know I've learned a lot. I'm sure that our viewers are going to learn a lot. And what we'll do is we'll make sure that we put in the show notes all of your resources and your links so that if anybody wants to get a hold of you, it'll be super easy. Chris, did you have any other last questions for
No, I don't, but I thank you very much for coming on. Really appreciate all the insights.
Thank you for having me.
Perfect. And I'm sure, there'll be room because the algorithm changes every month, I'm sure.
Oh my gosh.
So there'll be room to have you back for a part 2.
They're in the process of changing all the algorithms right now. They tanked the last 2 weeks in June. First week in July, nothing was happening. Everything was dead in the water. So they're just starting to come back now. And I'm really trying to keep my finger on the pulse of what's happening.
Well, you're definitely the LinkedIn badass, as you say. So again, thank you so much for joining us. And for everybody listening, tune in next week where we're chopping up brands to see what they're made of. Brand Chops is brought to you by the fine people at Pivot Creative. Pivot Creative is a full-service branding and marketing agency that partners with businesses to build brands that connect so that every dollar you spend is an investment and not an expense. If you need some branding or marketing guidance, a website, a new brand, or want to learn more about one of the topics we cover on the show, please reach out to us at pivotcreative.com. If you know someone that would benefit from learning more from one of our shows, please share the episode. Visit brand-chops.com. And as always, like and subscribe if you find this content to be helpful. See you next time on Brand Chops, where we chop up brands to see what they're made of.